In previous video we talked about classes and how to extend them, but the next question of your interviewer can be, okay, you know classes, but do we have classes actually in JavaScript, or we have something else? Because we don't have any classes in JavaScript and they are built as a sugar for prototypes. This is why now we must design exactly the same classes just by using JavaScript prototypes without usage of classes. And actually you need to do it at least once, and then you know what are the problems here. So first of all we have our class employee and secondly manager, and now we want to refactor it to prototypes. So first of all we must move all these methods outside, because actually we can't write them inside a function. And actually what is a prototype? This is a function. We don't use class keyword, and I will use var here because we're talking about prototypes, so this is the older version of JavaScript. So here I have var employee, and this is just a typical normal function with function keyword. And here we're getting ID and name, and actually this is also our constructor. So we don't need constructor here, we directly check OK, if we have ID and name, then we're throwing an error, but if not, we're setting here this ID and this name, which actually means this is our typical class when we're doing it with prototype. Now we need to adjust all our functions. As you can see here I have these functions, and now instead of just setSalary like a method, we must write it inside a prototype. So we're saying employee.prototype .setSalary, and this will be a function. So here we simply say equals function word, and here is our function. And we need to do exactly the same in every method. So employee.prototype.getID equals, and here is our function. And the same with getName and also with getSalary. So here is prototype getName equals function keyword, and here getSalary also the same. Employee prototype getSalary equals function. And now we successfully refactored our class to prototype. So it was not that difficult because we didn't do extend. And for now I want to comment out manager, so we're not getting any errors. Now let's check in browser. I'm reloading the page, and now we have here our employee. As you can see, the code is looking exactly the same. This is the instance of employee, and here we have, for example, getID method, we're getting 1. Here we have salary, so we can make getSalary, and it is all working. Which means this is how you refactor your class to prototypes. And now we have a manager and extend, and it will be more difficult. So here we have a manager with setDepartment and getDepartment, and yes, it also must be a function. So here we can just write var, and here we have our manager, and we know that this is a function. We also won't have setDepartment and getDepartment inside, we will write them afterwards. But here is the problem, our manager extends our employee, but we are setting inside the same params. And actually we don't want to write here ID and name, but we can just write here params, and we just want to throw all fields that we are getting and use here our employee. And for this we can write code like this, we can write employee apply, and here inside we are passing this, comma, arguments. And what this essentially does, it uses arguments from this function and here this. And as you can see here, I also wrote params. We're not using them for now, but if you get a task to extend manager with some field, you can write here this, for example, image equals params.image. And in this case, you must also pass in your manager an image. This is totally possible. But we don't need it for our task. This is why we simply use here employee apply these arguments. And what it does, it literally makes an extend partially of our employer. So as you can see here, we have this ID and name, and actually we are calling this function, but we are giving it another context. We are giving inside the context of our manager and all arguments from this function. But here is a huge difference that I want to show you. Actually, when we are jumping to the browser and writing here manager prototype, you can see here only a constructor function. But here, if I will write employee prototype, you can see here all functions that we had previously here on the top. Because actually this single line is just calling the constructor of employee. It doesn't have anything to do with this prototype, which actually means these functions are inside prototype of employee and manager doesn't get them. And this is super important because we're extending this class. This means that we want to have them directly inside our prototype. And we want to copy them. How we can do that? We can write here manager.prototype equals, And here we want to use object create because we want to clone our employee prototype. And inside we are passing our employee dot prototype. In this case, we are cloning all these functions from our employee to our prototype of manager. So let's check what we're getting here. I'm reloading the page and writing here manager.prototype. And as you can see, this is now a copy of our employee. And we can write here manager.prototype.getID, for example, and we're getting this method. Obviously, it is undefined because this is not an instance but a class, but we have access to this method inside. But here is also a huge problem. When we are writing here manager.prototype.constructor, we are getting the constructor of our employee and not manager, and this is wrong. This is why what we must write here also manager.prototype.constructor, and we want to assign here our manager function. In this case, it will be 100% correct, and as you can see, we are getting reference to our manager. So these are two lines which are super important when you are doing extend with prototypes. Because first of all, you want to get all methods from our employee, and secondly, you need to override constructor back to our manager. And now we can use setDepartment and getDepartment. This is exactly the same like it was previously. It is manager.prototype, and here we're assigning our setDepartment, and here manager.prototype.getDepartment, and here of course we need to write the function keyword. And exactly the same should be here on the top. In this case, we successfully implemented manager, just like it was done previously with classes. Let's reload our page and check. As you can see, we are getting our manager with ID and name, but we also have a function setDepartment. We can write, for example, here development, and now we have inside manager also development, and we have a nice getDepartment function. And obviously we can use the same function, for example, getID, from our parent, and it is also working. So this is how you typically will use prototypes and implement classes with native prototypes inside JavaScript.